Hello, welcome back to another podcast episode of the Transfer Portal CFB presented by NoContextCFB. We've got a great episode lined up for y'all today. There's FCS games and the playoffs, and there's Army Navy, so we'll be sure to hit on those, give you our picks for those games. And we've got two great co-hosts today. We've got Brian. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. Kind of like a slow, like the hype of the college football season kind of comes down a little bit, and then we kind of kick-started again for bowl season. So I got a great set of games to kind of keep the water warm for us before we hit a bowl season. So I'm excited for that.
Definitely do. Bowl season is quite the spectacle. What's up, Andrew? How are you doing?
I'm missing Gopher football. It's tough to not have, a game to go to, get to see the team on the sideline, winning an axe. But we'll be back eventually. West Virginia, watch out.
To miss watching a team run the ball 473 times a game, you're a sicko.
Hey, I'm a certified sicko.
Yeah, and you reference your bowl game there. Poor draw. I feel bad for you and other Gopher fans and the team.
Yeah.
And I guess PJ Fleck. I mean, that is a terrible bowl game that they got stuck with. And I guess, do you want to kind of start with that as we ramble about some bowl games for a bit? Do you want to go into that about your thoughts?
Let's talk about that. So we all know that the Guaranteed Rate Bowl, by the way, one of the worst names for a bowl this year. Who wants to go to the Guaranteed Rate Bowl? That sounds like the bowl that you put 2, 5, and 7 teams in just because you feel bad for them. Like, you're guaranteed to go to a bowl because something happened like last year that you couldn't go. So you're guaranteed this bowl and it sucks, right? And yes, Phoenix, probably the one good thing about the bowl is it's going to take Minnesota away from Minnesota, going to Arizona late in the year. Probably going to be -20 here by the time the bowl game runs around in the 28th. But the bids for the Big Ten this year were just kind of off. Like, Penn State making the Outback Bowl against Arkansas makes no freaking sense to me. We finished a game above them. They didn't really have a marquee win. And we also, we were just better than Penn State. We finished 8-4 with a win over Wisconsin. And you can't even use the losses against us because we both lost to Illinois. And I don't really know how much a loss to Bowling Green would affect, us going to the Outback Bowl. But I can't understand why they would get a much better bowl than us. I can kind of understand Wisconsin just because, Wisconsin's a bigger brand. It's going to sell more tickets probably. But the Penn State thing makes no sense to me. I don't want to watch West Virginia play football, no offense, but I would rather probably watch reruns of UConn Vandy. But I'm going to watch it because we're going to win 30-0. We're going to run the ball. They're not going to stop it. That's really all I have to say. That bowl sucks. I don't know why they gave us that bowl.
Yeah, you're just obviously not, and you're not the brand that Penn State is, and that's what it came down to, money and stuff. But it's so lame. We gotta think. Yeah, these players on Minnesota definitely deserve to play in a better bowl than the Guaranteed Rate Bowl or whatever the heck it's called. And Penn State players, they're gonna have a bunch of dudes opt out for this Outback Bowl. And did they really deserve to be in the Outback Bowl? Probably not. Brian, your Georgia Bulldogs, though, going to the playoff. We've known that for a long while, but other than that, what other games are you looking at in bowl season?
There's actually a lot. Like, I feel like this year, we're getting a lot of intriguing, good matchups, especially in our later bowls. Baylor and Ole Miss, I'm really interested in. Utah and Ohio State. I feel like the way Utah ended their season against Oregon, kind of, if we had a 12-team playoff right now, I would watch out for Utah. They played extremely well. I'm very excited to see how they would come up against an Ohio State team. Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Iowa, Kentucky. There's just a lot of games out there. Even kind of the further back, you got UTSA and Louisiana. There's a lot of interesting matchups. And then the Alamo Bowl, we have Oregon And oh man, I'm
Oklahoma.
blanking out. Oklahoma, yeah. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun bowl season, I think. A lot of the times when I think about bowl season, I kind of think like if I was a college football player, where would I want to play? Like what bowl game would I want to go to? And there's a I can't think of any, the Bahamas Bowl. Like that's the beauty of bowl season, right? We want to talk about the Sugar Bowl and all those bowls, the Outback Bowl, like these high value bowls. But then you have the Bahamas Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl, like these just random bowls with random sponsors, and those are my favorite games to watch. But if I was a college football player, put me in the Bahamas Bowl. I'll have a nice few days in the Bahamas. I don't care if we win or lose. I'm just gonna chill the Bahamas, go to the beach, do whatever they do. It's basically a vacation. You get to play football at the end of it. So Toledo and Middle Tennessee State, I feel I'm envious of them. I would be envious of them for having to go to the Bahamas. You kind of get rewarded for being kind of sucky. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, neither of them really had great seasons. Toledo kind of underachieved with 7 wins, I believe, and MTSU was pretty dang below average all year. And now both of them are going to be having fun, chilling in the Bahamas, which this game was better when it was called the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. That bowl produced some insane games. You kind of glossed over it. UTSA, SDSU is going to be a heck of a matchup. Utah, again, as you said, man, I wish we had I wish we had an 18 playoff. I don't wish we had a 12-team playoff. I wish it was 8, but with Utah, it's just so tough because this was a team that, a lot of us here had high expectations for all season, and they started off slow and then they found their fire as the season went on. But I can't fault them for their early season struggles. Like, it's completely understandable. And then just how they rebounded and overcame all this adversity is great. But you just can't help but think if they were able to pull off those wins against BYU and San Diego State, what a season. What a season it could have been. So, that Rose Bowl is going to be one heck of a matchup. Before we kind of get into yucky bowl games, what about the Boca Raton Bowl between Western Kentucky and App State? That's one heck of an early bowl game matchup between two pretty dang good group of 5 teams. Do either of you have any opinions on this game?
I mean, well, we saw what Bailey Zappi's done all season, right? I'm very interested to see if he's I want to see him break Joe Burrow's touchdown record. So he's at 56 or 57, I believe. He's one of 56, 57. I think he had 4 or 5 against UTSA in the conference championship game. So I'm very interested to see if he's going to break the record. There's nothing that indicates that he can't. I mean, they've been throwing lights out all season. You can easily throw 500 just for 6 touchdowns and break the record. And I kind of see, I feel like when you're kind of there, when you have a record like that in your sights, then honestly, they're not really playing for anything. Sure, you want to win a bowl game, but at this point, I don't think it's they didn't win the Conference USA, so I don't think it's where they wanted to be. So why not just let them air it out, let them break the record, go out, on a high. I really want to see that happen. So that's what I'm going to be pulling. That's what I'm going to be pulling for when it comes to Western Kentucky and Appalachian State. But Appalachian State is a very good team, so it's going to be a good matchup, I think. But I really want to see Bailey Zappi break that record. That's a great story. I don't care if you're a group of 5. I don't care if you're Georgia. I don't care if you're Alabama or you're Western Kentucky. Throwing 60 touchdowns in a season is pretty impressive. So I'm really excited to see, and hopefully he can break that record.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And like you said, hopefully they let Zappi air it out and, get some extra tape for the NFL draft, because I think he's criminally underrated in the NFL draft department. What about the worst bowl game or one of the ugliest bowl games? Andrew, what sticks out to you?
Anybody want to watch Old Dominion Tulsa?
That was sitting in my head when you brought that topic up. Like, yeah, nobody wants to see that matchup. Come on.
Not a good one.
The most notable thing about either team is that Tulsa almost beat Cincinnati and they were close with Ohio State for a little bit. I don't think I've watched a second of Old Dominion football this year. Like I
I
didn't
have to
even
get
know
there
they
in the
still
FBS.
fielded a football program.
I know Ollie Jennings is having a good year at receiver for them, but
He
other than
is. I
that,
will say that. But yeah, other than that, it's like, ugh. I mean, the most notable thing about that bowl is that it's taking place in South Carolina.
at Myrtle Beach, and you got here.
Is it even in Myrtle Beach?
Yeah, well, it's at Coastal.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but you're gonna have to hear the
Wait, so it's on the teal
garbage.
field?
Yeah,
Oh, let's go, man.
that's the only good aspect of this game is that it's on the
We
teal
love
field.
the teal field.
And then Tulsa's the hats that they have, the turnover hats and the touchdown hats. That's cool too. But yeah, gross bowl game. Brian, if you had to pivot to something else, what would you say?
If I had to pivot, let's see. Are we North Texas and Miami, Ohio? I mean, dude, they literally had to make up a new bowl game just to put them in a bowl game. So the Frisco Football Classic, you have the Frisco Bowl, and you have the Frisco Football Classic. And so North Texas, hey, you beat undefeated UTSA. Congratulations. We're gonna make up this bowl for you so you can be in a bowl. Am I gonna watch? Of course, because I'm a sicko like that. But yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't intrigue me. You know, actually, there's like I said, there's a lot of good matchups here, but there's not a lot that are. But at the same time, there's a lot that just I don't know. Just we had a lot of teams reach 500, so it's kind of usually we'll have like a 5-7 team make it. It could turn into an interesting matchup. Oh, and one other thing, I'm a sucker for football games being played in baseball stadiums. The Fenway Bowl, the Pinstripe Bowl. I think the Cheez-It Bowl is played in San Francisco.
Guaranteed rate.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a sucker for those types of games. So I'm looking forward to those as well.
Yeah, the Holiday Bowl between UCLA and NC State is at Petco Park this year.
Right. It is.
And yeah, the Fenway Bowl, it should be a really cool game between SMU and UVA. Should see a lot of points. A bowl I'm not looking forward to is Wisconsin ASU in Vegas. I might have made the trip to Allegiant Stadium to go watch the Vegas Bowl. And then it's a matchup between Wisconsin's run offense and a terrible ASU team. Rashad White announced he's off to the NFL. I don't think he's playing in this bowl game. Jay Daniels is back. We'll see if he could pick up any momentum going into next season. But ASU was just such an atrocious watch this year. And I just think this bowl game is quite a poor matchup. I would have liked to see a different Pac-12 rep in this game for a more entertaining matchup. But what can you do? What we can do is we've got the transfer portal in full swing. There are a lot of names in the portal. So I thought it'd be a fun little exercise if we predicted a transfer, whether we're just predicting this guy to enter the portal or we're kind of going to predict his landing spot too. I'll start with you, Andrew. Who do you see entering the portal?
The transfer portal is just one of the most random things. You could wake up one day and one of the best players in the nation is like, you know what? I'm out. So I had a tough time thinking of this. So my main criteria was just who do I think could lose their job that still has a few years of eligibility? As someone who watches Big Ten West football, both fortunately and unfortunately, I've had to watch Iowa play a few times. And I think Spencer Petras is a guy that's going to end up losing his job. He started the Big Ten championship. He didn't finish it. He started, I'm forgetting the game. He started another game in the regular season that he didn't finish. And I think he's going to lose the job to, I forget how you say his name, Padilla or Padilla. I think it's Padilla. I think he's going to lose his... I think he's going to lose this job. I think he's going to be like, you know what? I'm sure there's a group of 5 team that needs a very below average quarterback. And, maybe, I don't know. Maybe some team is like, you know what? Petras, he sucked at Iowa. Maybe he'll suck a little less here.
Yeah. Maybe a team's tanking for a good draft pick next year. I don't know. Like I have no clue. I don't really see the intrigue in taking him. I guess because he was a Big Ten quarterback, decent recruit, maybe maybe a group of 5 team that's kind of in dire need for a quarterback will bank on his talent and kind of hope that their coaching will be able to groom him into a competent quarterback. But
What talent?
just being nice to the fella.
I mean, we can be nice, but we can also be real.
Yeah, I'm just going back. Yeah, he stinks. I think the game you were alluding to was Purdue. I believe he did not finish that game.
Or I don't know. I was just laughing the entire game, so I wasn't paying attention.
Speaking of draft picks, that's interesting you mentioned. I was kind of thinking about that. Like, what if to kind of incentivize people to not join the transfer portal is if you join the transfer portal, you get put in a draft and you get drafted by a college football team instead of having to choose where to go. Imagine that. Imagine Caleb Williams getting into the draft or deciding to transfer and then he gets picked up by Old Dominion. Like, imagine that. And then you're kind of stuck there now. So now you can either stay at Oklahoma or you go to Old Dominion. That'd be yeah, right. That'd be a very interesting idea. Obviously, the logistics of that are impossible, but I think that'd be very interesting. But
that's a cool hypothetical.
Yeah,
it is though, right? Like, wouldn't you like? I could see that happening, and I could see that very, very intriguing. Definitely, the logistics would have to be worked out somewhere or another, but it could be very intriguing. You know, having somebody like maybe within the conference having a draft, you can only transfer within conference or something like that. So Vanderbilt getting first pick, something like that. I don't know, but yeah. So,
yeah, that's a really cool idea though, and something I've never heard of, and it obviously will like never happen. But just thinking of all of us like watching the transfer portal draft and seeing Spencer Rattler gets drafted 18th overall by Troy. Thanks. That's not happening, Andrew. Spencer Rattler got drafted by Troy, man. He's on his way to be a Trojan. Something like that happening would be so hilarious, and the memes that could ensue, the laughing on Twitter for the weeks about it. But it's quite the hypothetical. But what's the hypothetical transfer that you have, Brian?
So I was kind of thinking about it a lot, and not just because I'm wearing a Georgia shirt, but it's really interesting to see Georgia's quarterback situation. I can honestly see one of those guys transferring out. It's almost logical that one of those guys is transferring out. The assumption was this year that Stetson Bennett was nowhere near going to touch, the depth chart whatsoever. You have JT Daniels who killed it last 4 games of the year last year, went undefeated. Former 5-star. You have Brock Vandagriff, who's a former 5-star. You have Gunnar Stockton, who's coming in next year, who's this signing circuit. He's a 5-star. You have Carson Beck, who's he's a 4-star, but very talented 4-star. Going into his third year now. He's already been a Georgia for 2 years. So, it's hard to see what was supposed to happen was JT Daniels plays this year, raises his stock. He goes to the league, and the next year you have, Carson Beck for a year, and then you have Vandagriff for a year or two, and then you have, Gunnar Stockton. Now you have 4 guys who haven't touched the field at all, pretty much, and you have, JT Daniels in there as well. So I don't see JT Daniels going anywhere. It all depends on what JT Daniels does. If he comes back to Georgia, which at this point, I mean, his draft stock is pretty much in the water at this point. If you're going to have a former walk-on start over you, I don't think you're going to be drafted very high. So if he comes back, which I think he will, one of those guys has to transfer. Will it be Brock Vandagriff, who can, now he has to wait 2 years instead of just waiting 1 more year. Carson Beck, at this point, he's probably not going to see the field now. He's only going to have, maybe a year or less. I don't know. So, and then you have Gunnar Stockton coming in. So, I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be hard to really think. One of those guys has to transfer. And Stetson Bennett technically has another year of eligibility with the whole COVID rule last year that everybody last year basically doesn't count. He technically has another year of eligibility. So, he could come back for another year, which will be I think it'll be his 6th year or 6th or 7th year at Georgia at that point. And I love Stetson Bennett. I like what he did for us this year, but I do not want to see him as a starting quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs moving forward. So I really hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, one of those guys has to transfer, in my opinion, unless JT Daniels surprises everybody and either transfers or goes to the league, which I doubt. One of those new guys, whether it's Gunnar Stockton, whether it's Carson Beck or Brock Vandagriff, one of the two guys has to transfer. Maybe Gunnar Stockton just says, you know what, I don't want to sign with Georgia after all. I'm gonna, go somewhere else. I don't want to compete in that room. That you can see that as well. But one of those two guys I see transferring at least for sure this year, maybe next year.
All right, we'll keep an eye on the Georgia quarterback room. I also went with a quarterback for my transfer. I'm going with UVA quarterback Brennan Armstrong, which would be a substantial name in the portal. And, there's a few reasons for this. It remains to be seen who Virginia's head coach is going to be. Bronco obviously retired, and for the time being, he's retired. So we'll see what happens with Bronco. But UVA doesn't have a head coach right now. Would Brendan want to stay at UVA with the uncertainty head coach and a new head coach coming in that he hasn't worked with? Why would you do that if you're a highly talented quarterback that could go play pretty much anywhere, and there's multiple landing spots where he could go in and start right away and work with really good coaches that could help groom him into a great NFL quarterback prospect like we know this lefty can be? One of them that just screams off the board is Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is probably looking for a new quarterback after Matt Corral departs, right? Like you would think, if he could pull Armstrong from UVA to Ole Miss, just think about that electricity. He would have just another elite quarterback that could do work through the air and on the ground. Similar to Corral in certain extents with the running ability, the toughness, the leadership, the fight. I think Armstrong at Ole Miss is a very real option if he hits the portal. I think Texas is an option with Sark looking for a quarterback. Hudson Card and Casey Thompson were just not it. Quinn Ewers, obviously, if he does not go to Texas and he goes to Texas Tech, Texas is still looking for a quarterback. Armstrong is better off at Texas than he is at UVA. You've got to look at the name brand that helps these kids in the draft. He would get so much more recognition at Texas. And then the option, this is where I think if I had to predict the spot, I would predict Brennan Armstrong to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has seen Armstrong on tape. They've studied for him. I know he didn't play in that game a few weeks ago against Notre Dame because he had some broken ribs, but Notre Dame is very familiar with Brennan Armstrong and the quarterback that he is. Notre Dame was one game away from making the college football playoff this year with Jack Cohn at quarterback, and then I'm blanking on the third guy's name. I know Pine was there. I'm blanking on the third guy's name. My bad. But they had very poor quarterback play, and they were a game away from the playoff. You plug in Brandon Armstrong there to cook up with Marcus Freeman under his leadership and see what could happen. There's a lot to be excited about. So I think Notre Dame's the strongest option. And just I've heard that Tommy Rees is going to have a lot more freedom in his play calling at Notre Dame with Kelly out. So that's something to look for, is Tommy Rees gang in his bag, and we're actually going to see the great OC that he might be. Armstrong to Notre Dame sounds like a no-brainer to me. Get the ginger to the Irish. The next thing we'll do. Oh, sorry, my bad.
I did want to say one. I don't want to put this on paper, but I do want to have an interesting hypothetical that I could think of is having the Clemson and Oklahoma essentially swap quarterbacks. So having oh my God, why am I blanking on their names now? I literally just said his name.
Caleb and DJ.
Caleb Williams going to Clemson and DJ Ungalele going to Oklahoma. I know, with the Venable signing at Oklahoma, there's and he didn't really play that well this year. He kind of got benched a couple times. So maybe a fresh start for him might work out. With Lincoln Riley leaving Oklahoma, you might see maybe Caleb Williams wanting to go somewhere else too. There was the rumblings about that. So having Dabo Swinney with Caleb Williams, that's pretty intriguing. And then DJ following Venables down to Oklahoma, that might that also sounds kind of intriguing as well. So I know Venables is a defensive coordinator, so it doesn't make sense on the X's and O's side, but the relationship wise is still there. So that's a kind of a out there kind of situation, which I don't really see happening, but it'd be very interesting. I don't think it's as far fetched as I would think it is, but that might be a very interesting situation that could happen.
Yeah, that would be crazy if that happened. We'll go into our player focus here again as we have 4 FCS playoff games and Army Navy this week. We'll go to you, Brian. Who's a player that you're looking at this week?
So the player that I'm looking at this week, I have Raymond Jefferson. He is the running back for Sam Houston State. So yesterday or this past weekend against UIW in the second round, he had 22 attempts for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. And they just squeaked out a win against UIW. So they're playing Montana State. So I can see him. I'm interested to see if they continue using him. If he has to run that ball that much against UIW, which Sam Houston State is the number one ranked team in the playoffs this year in the FCS. And they had a goal line stand against UIW to win, similar to Oklahoma State and Baylor. So to see, I'm really interested to see. He has 1,138 rushing yards for the season with 13 touchdowns. Before this past weekend, he was 14 for 86, 15 for 55, and 8 for 76. And then all of a sudden, he exploded for 22 for 166 and 2 touchdowns. I'm interested to see what he's going to do against Montana State and continue, their run through the playoffs, if they're going to utilize him the way they are. So my player focus is Ramon Jefferson from Sam Houston State.
Yeah, that's a great pick. We'll make sure to look out for him in what should be a really, really good game between 1 and 8. Andrew, what about you?
So if you know me, you know how much I love Montana. I have family from Montana. I've been there a few times, used to live there. Beautiful state, beautiful city of Missoula. So I'm going to talk about my Grizzlies. I have my Gophers. I also have my Grizzlies. The leading sack getter, whatever you want to say, in the Big Sky is Patrick O'Connell from Montana. He's got 13 sacks or something along those lines. And he's going to have a massive impact if the Grizzlies want to take down James Madison, who are a very, very talented team. I'm looking for O'Connell to probably get 2 sacks, maybe even force a fumble. He has a history of getting forced fumbles this year. He needs to have a big game if the Grizz want to keep up with James Madison.
Yeah, that's a great pick. We've seen that Montana defense thrive all season, especially when they start off the season with the win against Washington. Imagine thinking Washington was going to be good this year. You got to be embarrassed if you thought that. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
We don't have to talk about that, Liam. It's not like anyone picked them to be in the playoff.
Hey, we're moving on. I meant to pick Utah. That's what I meant. Okay.
Same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I meant to pick Utah. No, my player focus, though, is actually playing Montana and that defense. It's receiver from James Madison, Antoine Wells Jr. His stats are unreal for a redshirt freshman that played in the spring and now is playing in the fall. 73 catches for 1,117 yards and 14 receiving touchdowns. He's had 3 receiving touchdowns in each of the last 2 games. I've seen some of his highlights. I'm tripping because I didn't know about him until last week. I'm looking at some of his highlights this last few days. This guy is unreal for a redshirt freshman. He is so polished already for how young he is. The thing that stood out to me the most is, in the NFL, how we see some of these receivers who flash their hands so late to make catches on the sideline that are impressive catches. Devontae Adams comes to mind. This kid's best asset is how late he's able to flash his hands and make substantial, absurd catches on the sideline. It's remarkable. He is so good for how young he is. I don't know. He wins deep. He wins in the intermediate game. Immaculate hands. He's strong after the catch. Really good body control. I'm ashamed for not knowing who he was until last week, because this kid is going to be a big time player, and maybe he's someone that enters the transfer portal and works his way up to a Power 5 school maybe, or a really good group of 5, and makes his name there before he makes his ascension to the NFL. But this is a name that we're going to need to know and watch, especially us NFL draft fans, because Antoine Wells Jr. is a definite guy that could play in the NFL receiver. Again, those stats are unreal for a redshirt freshman. And 6'1", 204. Let's keep an eye out on Antoine Wells Jr., and we'll see if he could do really good work against a really good Montana defense. The next thing we'll go into is, we haven't really talked about the FCS playoff bracket all year. So why not pick our national champion? I'm sure I know who Andrew's picking, so we'll go and see what he's got.
Yeah, after talking up Montana, I'm gonna go with their biggest rival, Montana. I'm kidding. Yeah, it's Montana. There's completely no bias here, none at all. But I genuinely think that if Montana can get past James Madison, I like them over North Dakota State as long as they beat Eastern Tennessee State. And then that would probably set up a rematch between them and Sam Houston State. Now, quick little backstory. When I was young, and I paid a lot more attention to FCS football. I know a 10-year-old paying attention to the FCS is kind of weird, but I'm also weird. But Montana played Sam Houston State. I can't remember if it was in the quarter or the semis. I don't think it was the championship, but they beat Montana, and I've hated them ever since. So if Montana can beat Sam Houston, it would just be not a thing off the bucket list, but it would just be like revenge gotten. So I'm going to take my Grizzlies.
10-year-old Andrew is seeking out revenge. Crazy.
Yep. It's a scary person. I'm a scary
Over
person.
a decade later.
Almost a decade later. Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm old.
Look, I was that same kid watching FCS football. I don't remember how old I was, but dang well I was watching Eastern Washington with Cooper Kupp and Kendrick Bourne, Shaq Hill, their third receiver, and Vernon Adams throwing them the ball. I was definitely that kid watching Eastern Washington on that red turf. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm also pretty bummed out that they're knocked out of the playoffs. So thanks, Montana. Thanks. Yeah. Brian, Thanks. What about you?
So I actually did pay attention a little to FCS because of UIW. So University of Incarnate Word, which is in San Antonio, which is my wife's alma mater. Great school, beautiful campus. So happy for their success this year. And then they go to Sam Houston State and have a monumental comeback, and then they get shut down at the goal line. And that made kind of like Andrew's story. I can't stand Sam Houston State now. I want them to lose. So I think it's kind of hard to go against, like, history is telling me to go with North Dakota State because they just always win. I know, James Madison, they won, I think a couple years ago, not last year was COVID year, but a couple years ago, I think James Madison won the FCS championship. So I'm kind of leaning towards James Madison or North Dakota State. I think I'm going to go with North Dakota State just because of, I guess the history is there, and I don't want to sit here and lie and say that, I'm a FCS savant or anything, but I think I want to stick with the name recognition and go with North Dakota State. I think they're 23.5 point favorite over Eastern Tennessee State. So I think they're just going to power through and win another championship. I think it'll be their 30th in the last 10 years, something like that. But yeah, so I'm going to go with North Dakota State.
Yeah, I would say that us three are probably the three people part of the transfer portal CFB that really do keep up with FCS playoff season. I know the three of us have tweeted out a bunch of clips from the FCS level or whatever it be. I know you've tweeted out UIW stuff, Andrew with Montana. I've gone with Eastern Washington and a lot of South Dakota State, and that's who I'm taking to win the national championship. If you don't know, for those listening, in the FCS, they rank the top 8 seeds, and then everyone else is unranked. There's 8 teams left. The lone unranked team left, South Dakota State. I love this team. They really impressed me early in the season when they I'm trying to think of how to put this nicely. They absolutely steamrolled Steve Adazio in Colorado State in Fort Collins to open the year. Absolutely destroy them. And I fell in love with this team ever since. I've kept tabs on them all year. It's so hard saying his name. Odoikin, their quarterback, was not their starter coming in. he wasn't supposed to be a starter. There were injuries and stuff, so he's been their starter all year. South Florida transfer going to the East West Shrine Bowl now, if I'm not mistaken. He's had a pretty solid season, but this team and their run game is unreal. It's led by Pierre Strong Jr., who I've talked up a lot, and that's why I didn't choose him for my player focus, because I've already talked about him so much and chosen him for a player focus. But I truly believe no matter the level, Pierre Strong Jr. is one of the best running backs in the country. I would put him top 10 in the entire country. That includes FBS. He's the best FCS running back, and he's going to be one of my top running backs in the 2022 NFL draft. There's so much to like about him, his cutting ability, his violence. He's an incredible runner and really good receiving back. But you know what, folks? This guy could throw the ball too. I am chirping because I forget how many passes he has thrown in his career. I think it's 7 or 8. He has completed every single pass. And I think 5 or 6 of those have gone for touchdowns. There was a play earlier this year where they ran a trick play and he threw a touchdown. It's remarkable that this running back has such success as a thrower too. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with South Dakota State here. I really like this team. The Yankee brothers or Yankee twins, I believe, at receiver are really fun. Jayan and Jackson. So I'll go with South Dakota State. I think it's a really fun, talented team, and why not pick the underdog? Why not?
Why not?
Doubling down on your passing, he is 9 of 9.
Yes.
So 100% completion, 208 yards, 6 tutties, no picks, obviously, with a 514.1 rating.
Yeah, that's unreal. That includes FCS playoff games and regular season. Thank you for clarifying what his stats were, because you look at that and that leaves you speechless. That's crazy.
Get him to Iowa. They need a quarterback.
No, get him to the NFL, please.
True. Get him to who needs a quarterback right now? Texans?
Get him to the Texans with my quarterback and running back.
Just run a Wildcat offense.
True. So let's go into our games for the week. We'll start with Army Navy, and then we'll get into the FCS playoffs. We'll go with your first pick for Army Navy, Brian.
So Army Navy is very interesting. It's an interesting matchup. It was obviously the only game. I love how it's the only game on this. They kind of get their own deal. So I was gonna go with the upsets, or with I'm not even gonna. I didn't even look at stats. I'm just gonna go with my gut. I'm gonna say Army. I'm just gonna say Army, just because in this type of game anybody can win, and I'm gonna go with Army.
What about you, Andrew?
So the Army, known for fighting on the ground a lot. Navy, fighting in the water. Unfortunately, we don't play football in the water, so I'm going to take Army.
Well, we have played basketball on aircraft carrier, or whatever they're called, man. I'm not a military person. I don't know what they're called. Aircraft carrier ships, whatever it's called. So big ships. Played on big ships. They played on a body of water. Remember North Carolina, Michigan State. Anyway, both of you are going with Army. I'm also going with Army. I'll go with 21-6. Army has dominated this. Well, Navy dominated the series for a long stretch, and now it's Army's turn to start dominating. The shift in these two teams' programs' powers have completely flipped. Like, Navy was the dominant team that was out there winning 8-9 games every year, and Army was struggling to win 3 or 4. It's a complete opposite now. I'll go with Army, and we'll go into Montana. James Madison. Andrew, your national champs. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to predict my national champs to lose. Go Grizz. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Wait a minute. I'm going to go with I'll go with Andrew. I'll go with them as well. I'll go with the Grizz.
I'm going to go with James Madison. I think this team will make the national championship. I think they'll meet up with South Dakota State there. I'll go with James Madison, 31-26. Obviously, I talked about Antoine Wells Jr. and the freak that redshirt freshman is, but their quarterback, Cole Johnson, is ridiculous as well. He leads the team with 6 rushing touchdowns. How about 3,274 pass yards this season, 37 pass touchdowns, 2 interceptions? That's an absurd ratio. I know the Montana yeah, I know the Montana defense is disgusting, but I'm gonna go with a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over very much at all. A very good James Madison team that there's fuel to the fire here because the CAA has, been very rude with James Madison for wanting to leave, and they are leaving. They're going to the Sun Belt. So the CAA doesn't let their teams play in conference postseason now that leave. So James Madison basketball can't play in the conference tournament this year. James Madison football didn't get the CAA conference title this season, if I'm not mistaken. There's fuel to the fire. They're going to want to improve the CAA to, be a bunch of buffoons or something. So I'll go with JMU. Brian, what about ETSU, North Dakota State? Your Bison.
I mean, it's really not a contest. North Dakota State's going to win. They're going to win big. I think they'll win, 42-0, 42-7, something like that. I really don't have any, they'll dominate. They'll dominate. They're favored by 23.5 points. I think they'll definitely be more. I think it'll be more than that. So yeah, give me the Bison.
Very understandable there. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, they're called the Bison because they're going to make ETSU their son, and they're going to say bye, son. They're just going to absolutely father them. They might just win easily. They're going to win easily. They're going to win by 50 billion probably.
Yeah, reminder though, guys, it's Bison. It's Bison, but it's Bison. They don't want to be called the Bison. My fifth grade teacher went to NDSU, and he always told us it's Bison. He played football there. He said it's Bison. So I got the Bison winning. I'm going with NDSU 34-13. I think like their ball control and their defense, that's the buzzsaw here. I know I've seen this team bleed clock like crazy with 7, 8, 9-minute drives last season against Eastern Washington. I saw them carve so much time off the clock. It's ridiculous. And I just want to credit ETSU, East Tennessee State, on an incredible season. This is not a program that wins like this in football. And they've had a very, very good season. And their comeback win against Kennesaw State last week was unbelievable. They were on bad beats, if I'm not mistaken, for making Kennesaw State look bad here with a crazy cover for ETSU. I know they were down like 31-17 with like 2 minutes left or something, or 31-14 with a few minutes left, something ridiculous, and they came back and won. So credit to them. Our next game here is South Dakota State Nova. Andrew.
I think South Dakota State's going to prove that Villanova's a basketball school.
All right. What about you, Brian?
I mean, Villanova's, they won 4 straight. They're kind of hot right now. But I don't think it'll be enough. I think South Dakota State's going to win. I think they're favored by 7. I think they'll win by more than that. Give me SDSU or SDSU. Sorry.
Yeah, they go SDSU or SDST. But I'm also going with the Jackrabbits here. I'll go 34-24. Nova did beat James Madison this season. That's JMU's one blemish on their record. South Dakota State, they've had a lot of ups and downs by picking them to win the Natty. And hey, these are two teams that we should see in the NCAA tournament in basketball too. Probably aren't going to match up because South Dakota State's going to be a dang 13 seed if they win their conference tournament. But hey, two really good basketball teams to go along with really good football teams this season. So love to see that. Montana State, Sam Houston State. Brian, who you got?
I'm going to go with, man, I really don't want to pick Sam Houston State because I'm so bitter about last week, but I'm going to. They're the number 1 ranked team for a reason. Give me Sam Houston State.
Let's hear your side, Andrew.
Both teams lose?
They cannot actually. It's not allowed. I don't know why.
Would that be the first time in college football history both teams lost?
Oh, both teams have lost plenty of times. I'm sure.
Morally.
Yes, exactly. Like when
I can think of a few.
I could think of a few as well. Like when a bad coach wins a game and gets another year out of it, that's not great. That's a double loss.
Or yeah, that would suck. But I don't want either of these teams to win. I hope they both lose. But for the sake of picking, because I need to make my record better, I am going to take Sam Houston State. I hope Montana State just gets obliterated, and then Sam Houston State gets obliterated in the next round.
By South Dakota State.
By South Dakota State.
You could have in a year of COVID. Not I don't want anybody to get COVID or anything, but you could have one team win and then have an outbreak and be forced to forfeit. So,
or maybe they just found out they cheated.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're getting into some controversial waters.
You guys are desperate.
Hey, I'm desperate for teams to lose. So
well, guess what? You have to hear my pick because I have Montana State winning. I'm going 38-33.
I hate the Bobcats.
You'd be content. You'd be content. It knocks out a really good team and it makes the potential championship for Montana a little easier. But yeah, I'm going Montana State here 38-33. I haven't picked an upset. So why not roll with them? I believe the spread is 9 or 9.5. Maybe it's 10 or 11. It's somewhere around there, though. That's all you need to know. So Sam Houston State, very good team with a very lethal offense. Why not just go with the boys from Bozeman, though? I don't know why. I don't know. I really don't have reason. Schmidt is a very good quarterback for SHSU, but something about Montana State winning this game it screams college football. So I'll go with that.
Spread is 6, by the way.
What?
Spread is 6.
Oh, the spread is 6.
Yes.
That's what that was. Okay.
Yeah. What did you think this was?
I was so confused. I was wondering. I was like, dude,
they're gonna win 5-1.
Yeah, I was like, the heck's going on there?
Oh, that would be a football score.
You're not cool with me having Montana State win by 5. You needed them to win by 6. I don't know though. I think Montana State could go in there and win, especially after Sam Houston State.
I think they can too. I just want them both to
disintegrate.
Yeah. I mean, no, because I want the joy of seeing Montana beat the GrizzCat rivalry. But like Sam Houston State, if they didn't feel the football program anymore, I'd be content.
Yeah, I would be too. I don't want to see them play again. They ruined my our Cinderella season for UIW. And then to make matters worse, UIW lost their head coach to Washington State, who, I mean, not to get off topic here, but why would you leave? I guess that's just me, the pride thing, right? You're the head coach of a really good FCS program who took the number one team in the country in the FCS to literally the brink of elimination, to the 1 yard line, and then you leave for an offensive coordinator's position at Washington State, who, I mean, they're not the top tier program in the Pac-12, at least not anytime soon. So I don't know.
I would say I would just look at it as a form of he's trying to elevate his, and in air quotes, stock. Yeah. Like I don't think, and maybe this is just me, I wouldn't want to be content being a head coach in the FCS unless I like loved the program and I wanted to build a power like North Dakota State has been. I would want to try and get up to the next level. And you're not going to become the head coach of USC by being the head coach at Incarnate Word. You're going to be a head coach of a Power 5 program by being a coordinator in a Power 5 or Group of 5 program head coach.
Yeah, Andrew nailed it there. If his heart wanted to be an FCS play, he'd stick around at UIW. But how many years does he have to succeed there before he's going to get that FBS head coaching job that he's looking for? It's gonna be tough, and the sustained success at UIW could be tough for him to have. Going to Washington State, working with a very young, talented quarterback, Jalen DeLora, for a year or two is a really good opportunity for him to build his stock, build up a resume, and then this is just a stepping stone job for him. He'll be there for 1 to 3 years, and then he'll move on to a bigger job, whether it be a Group of 5 head coaching job or a bigger Power 5 offense coordinator job. So I understand where his head is at. It's really just a matter of what perspective you're looking at it from. And obviously, Brian, you're looking at it from, man, you should have built UIW into a NDSU powerhouse. But I mean, I can't hate his decision either way. I think it's a good decision on his part. I'm blanking on his name, and that's why I just keep calling him his and he. But I think I think it's a good opportunity for him. I can't wait to see what he does in a Washington State offense that, we always love watching these last however many years. They've been super fun to watch. But hey, that'll do it for this podcast episode of the Transfer Portal CFB. I know we rambled on quite a bit sometimes, but I'm glad that we were able to shine a light on the FCS and get a lot of love shown there. I know there's not a lot of other college football platforms that are doing that, and we are dedicated to showing them love. Hopefully we can get some articles up in the near future for FCS play, and we'll continue to, shine the light on a lot of great talent at the FCS level, because we know dang well FCS talent, it's just, there's a gold mine there, and there's a lot of good players. You think of Eric Barrier, who shined at Eastern Washington for a while, sticking at Eastern Washington. Cooper Kupp is tearing it up in the league. You have Kenny Moore on the Colts from Valdosta State, who's balling out. They're
North Dakota State quarterbacks.
Oh yeah, those guys. Sorry,
those guys.
Yeah, those guys. Trey Lance and Carson Wentz getting up there in the
they pump out quarterbacks like crazy. It's a quarterback factory in it.
And they got former Virginia Tech quarterback Quincy Patterson at quarterback this year. But hey, we're rambling on again. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you all to those who are still listening. Make sure to like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. And we'll see you next time on another podcast episode. Oh, and look out for our player interviews, because we're hoping to have a few of those in the coming weeks. Jared Stearns, watch out for that one, because that's coming up. Okay, bye.
Bye.
You too.